morning, Mosaic Leader. How are you guys doing? Awesome. Was that Dan? Did a good job this morning? Yeah, let's just show them a round of applause. That's really appreciate it. You folks came on a good morning. We have a guest speaker this morning, and before he comes up, we're going to have a short video. But when I first met our guest speaker, he and his wife were in a song and dance skit, and I thought, man, this guy's got talent. I just didn't know, not only as an educator, as a song and dance man, as a speaker, he also serves as an elder at our home church, Mosaic, in Hollywood. But before we get to him, we asked a few of you, sort of man on the street, as it were, what is integrity, which is the subject that our guest speaker will be sharing this morning. So let's go ahead and watch this video, and we'll bring up Ricky right afterwards. Thank you, guys.
Integrity to me means how well you use your mind, and that's about it.
Integrity is consistency of spirit. So you're consistent in your integrity. It's simple, it's homogeneous. Without decision, integrity is part of nature, part of the person's nature.
Integrity to me means doing what you believe and what you say. So living according to your values, not just saying something that you believe in, but actually doing it so that people see that you live your values.
Integrity, when you do when people aren't looking.
I guess it means having a respect for everyone else around you, everybody you come in contact with in your life, just having that's really much especially with respect, respecting others and treating each other the way you want to be treated. And I think it takes a lot to acknowledge that you're doing that to other people, so there's
Integrity. When a man keeps his word and stays true to himself as he does to his friends.
Integrity is, you need that to get a good place in your life, don't you? That's what it means to me.
Good morning. Yeah, how's everyone doing? I think it's great, exciting energy today. I love singing with you this morning. The band, Bobby, like I kind of said, did a great job today getting us started for this talk this morning. I'm excited for it. I want to try to bring some energy this morning too. I think it's just like perfect that today's topic is integrity, because about maybe, 10 years ago, I needed some shoes for this wedding I was in. And Bobby, the sharp dresser that he is, Bobby Durant, you guys know, you've seen Bobby, look at him how he was dressed this morning. That's what's good. Look, Bobby, give us a wave, man. Huge effort. I knew he would have some shoes. He's about my size, and I'm my foot size, and I knew he would have something for me. So I go, hey, Bobby, can I borrow some shoes? I got this wedding I got to be in. He's like, absolutely, bro. I'll drop them by. He brought them over. And they went perfectly. They worked perfectly. They fit. They look good. And so I thought, man, these are nice shoes. And Bobby's not going to need these for a while. We just so happened to be taking a trip to New York the following day. So I packed those in my bag with me. Thought, hey, these are going to look good in New York. And so about maybe 4 days later, we're having the time of our lives in New York, walking around, eating dinner at great spots. And I get this call from Bobby. Oh, what's Bobby calling about? Didn't even think about the shoes. I was wearing it when he called. And he goes, hey, bro, Ricky, I just wanted to see if I could come by and get those shoes because I'm doing a wedding on Saturday and I need them. Oh my goodness, there's no way out of this. Like, how do I? He's like, I'll go by your house. I know you're out of town. I'll go by your house and just pick them up. It's no problem at all. That won't work. So I just had to say it, man. I just said, Bobby, I'm wearing your shoes right now. And he said, no problem, man. You can wear them. I just need them for Saturday. And I'm going to be in New York till Monday. It was humiliating. So it's perfect that today I get to come full circle and talk about all the growth I've done in the 10 years. So what was crazy this morning is I have to use my wife's iPad. I couldn't find my iPad this morning. And so I needed a cover. I couldn't just hold it up there with no cover. So I'm over here with Octavio and Bobby. I'm like, anybody have an iPad cover I can borrow? And Bobby goes, he flinched. He's like, I didn't know what he thought. I didn't even think about the shoes at that point. He goes, yeah, bro, you can borrow mine, you know? And then Chris, of course, Chris had to remind me of the shoes. Then I realized why Bobby was a little reluctant. But I promise I'm going to give this back to you right after, man. I promise. Thank you.
The integrity. I love the definitions that people gave. I think most of us feel probably the same way about integrity. That
It's our behaviors that are connected to the inside of us. The core values that we live with showing themselves to be true. One thing about that, though, is that I believe that's absolutely true. We don't ever do anything out of character. Everything we do is within our integrity. So if I come up to you and for no reason I just slap you across the face, you might say, wow, that was really out of character for Ricky. Actually, if I'm capable of doing it, then it's part of who Ricky is. So all of the choices we make, as much as we'd like to say that most of the time I'm good or this, that, and the other, if there are decisions that we're making that violate what we say we believe, then there's still some growth to do with this idea of integrity, or this idea of character. And you will always live from the inside out, always. So whatever is inside will come out. And that may explain why some of our relationships end up the way they do sometimes, where we're always looking for our own self-interest, or things just, conflicts don't get resolved well. So integrity exactly is the inside coming out. Those two things matching up. So I've been thinking a lot about this idea of integrity. I wanted to figure out what the essential idea about integrity was. And so I did a lot of thinking, a lot of soul searching. Around Mosaic, you probably heard that we talk a lot about believe, belong, become. These three intrinsic needs that every human being has. This need to believe in something, this need to belong somewhere, to someone, and this intrinsic desire, this inside desire to become someone or become something. We talk about those themes a lot around here. And I think for most of us, one of those tend to be a little more dominant than the other. Maybe you're a guy or a girl who is just in pursuit of something to believe in, of something to give your life to, of something to just be all in for. Or maybe you're always looking for that place to belong. You're always creating a space for people to belong to you, and you're wanting desperately to belong to someone. Maybe that's a dominant theme for you. For me, throughout my life, there has always been this theme to become someone. To become someone, to become something in life. And I'll tell you, quite honestly, I'm just going to share personally with you this morning through the scriptures. I don't feel like I'll ever get there. I'm always struggling with who I am compared to who I envision that it's possible for me to be. I always feel like there's something more I can be doing. I'm rarely content with where I am. There's this tension and this divide inside of me where I am at sometimes content with who I am. But then there's always this tension of more, of wanting to become more, wanting to do more, wanting to become better in my life. So becoming is definitely a theme for me when we're talking about those intrinsic needs. That's why I love this Uprising series. This Uprising series has been so transformational for me to understand what's going on inside of me and how to journey to become the man that I was designed to be. So if I had to describe or define what integrity is, I'm going to define it this way for us this morning. Integrity is aligning who we believe we are with who God says we are. That is the biggest challenge for me. I know what the scriptures say. I know what God has done for me. I know what Jesus did on the cross because of who I am to Him and who we are to Him. But for some reason, I still struggle with believing that what God says about me is true. That what the scriptures communicate about me is true. And so integrity is, the way we reach the pinnacle of integrity is continuing throughout our lives to become more closely aligned with who God says we are, and we live that out. We live who God created us to be out into the world in our behavior. Okay, so I'm a high school English teacher by day. I teach high school English near the corner of Crenshaw and Jefferson in South LA. And I've taught there for 16 years. I've been in education. Our school is designed for kids coming out of juvenile hall and camp, who are on probation, who are being expelled from the school district and trying to get back on track and get their lives back together. So it's been an adventure, a complete adventure every single day of my work. And when we talk about becoming, I like to use this term called Mack truck mentoring. Some of you know what I mean. A couple of one of you does, actually. Mack truck mentoring. Like we like to grow and develop, right? We love having mentors and people investing in us and talking about how we should live our lives. We like that process to be enjoyable and like I'm learning a lot from the wisdom that you're sharing with me. See, a Mack truck will teach you something. If you get hit by a Mack truck, you learn a lot. It's very painful though, right? So that's what working with teenagers for the last 16 years has been for me. Mack truck mentoring. They're not even trying to be mean. They're just being themselves. Like they'll walk into school and you spend time getting ready in the morning, right? You get ready for school and like feeling like I look good, happy with what I see in the mirror as I leave. And then I get to school and get things ready for class and a couple of students start trickling in. As soon as all the students are there, we're going strong in the lesson, some kid says, "Williams, you look like Santa." Which is awesome, right? Because Santa's the look I was going for that morning. I was getting ready, like, I'm pulling the Santa out today. I used to get so frustrated and so angry, and I'd be like, "Well, you look like..." You can't say stuff to teenagers like that, so you can tell them what they look like, so I just take it. And now I've gotten a little better at it, because it happens all the time. Every time a new kid starts, "Hey, you kind of look like Santa." Thank you. Now I just say, "You know what? You didn't get me for Christmas this year. I'm not coming to your house this year." Or one time, if people give them exactly what they want, they'll ask, "Can I go down to the office and call my mom? I don't want her to bring some lunch for me." "No, you can't. It's a girl. She's asking me. I want her to bring some lunch. I want school lunch." I'm like, "You can't right now. We need to finish work. You need to stay in class." She's getting angrier and angrier and angrier. "Let me go, come on." She's yelling at me and everything. She's just getting all crazy. And finally, she just gets up and storms out of the class, right? Like, "Oh, great, okay, just do it. Why'd you ask? We're going to go anyway." So she's walking down and saying, "Look, I'm going to write you up if you walk out the door." So she goes downstairs. She's walking downstairs. She doesn't say anything. She ignores me. And then she gets to the bottom of the stairs. She goes, "Lose weight!" And I yelled back, "I'm trying!" So sometimes you just have to deal with it, right? Teenagers, that's where they are. So I have grown a lot in my character from 14 to 19-year-olds over the course of the last 16 years. But the point is, we are all on this journey. And what's beautiful about following Jesus, for those of you who are followers, and for those of you who are not followers, who are trying to figure things out, you're here because you want to know more about what it means to have a relationship with God, or you're just on a journey to find out, to figure things out for yourself. The journey is the beautiful part of life. Journeying with God, learning more about who He says you are, and then aligning your life with His vision for you. See, integrity is not a pursuit of perfection. It's not about being perfect. It's not about making sure our behaviors are all lined up for what other people think or see. But more than that, it's a rejection of falsehood. It's refusing to live falsehood. My kids would say, "Stop being fake." Right? There are a lot of things that go on in our lives, thoughts and ways of being that we just pretend are not there. But they keep tripping us up. We pretend that these things that are going on inside, the way we look at others, the way we feel about ourselves, the way we look at ourselves, the decisions we're making, we're thinking one way on the outside and we're living another way on the inside. It's just a tension that never goes away. Rejecting falsehood is what Jesus came to do. In John 8:37, Pilate says to Jesus, "You are a king then," said Pilate. Jesus answered, "You are right in saying I'm a king. In fact, for this reason I was born, and for this reason I came into the world, to testify to the truth. Everyone on the side of the truth listens to me." A person who lives with integrity, who desires to pursue integrity, is a person that loves the truth, listens to the truth. And when they hear the truth, they move forward and realign their lives with what new thing they've learned from God. That is the essence of integrity. It's not a destination where I have integrity. I would say we have integrity and we're growing in it. We're growing in this idea of character. Integrity is a commitment to a truthful life. Each time God reveals something to you, you faithfully align yourself with Him no matter how painful it is. No matter how painful it is to come to a realization that this is true about you, that this part of your character needs to develop, no matter how painful that is, we confront it, we take it on, we agree with what we hear God saying to us about ourselves, and we align our lives to it. Because as painful as it is in the long run, it's the best choice you can make. To continually challenge yourself, question yourself. Why do I keep ending up here? Instead of blaming other people, instead of always blaming other circumstances on why you end up where we end up, we take complete responsibility for the choices we make. And even if a decision is made by someone else that we couldn't control, we still have to respond by saying, okay, it is what it is. What am I going to do now? We can't spend our whole lives blaming others for our lives, right? So, as soon as God reveals something, you align your lives to it. I remember about maybe 15 years ago, we were at the building of Church on Grady over in East LA. A lot of you know what I'm talking about. You've heard by now. You've been around for a little while. And there was a couple that had been coming for just a little while. And this couple had been through it in life. I mean, the husband had been in and out of prison, from violent life, had had struggled with drugs and alcohol. His wife had struggled with drugs and alcohol. They were just like spiraling, And they started coming to Church on Grady Mosaic, and they got involved in this healthy community. They started to love on them, and they started to develop healthy relationships, and their lives completely changed. Completely changed. They became followers of Jesus, and it was just amazing and exciting to see how their lives, how they began to grow incrementally, and in big strides too. They were putting all of this to shame because of their commitment to truth, and their commitment to grow and become who God had designed them to be. Even though they got started later, they were so committed to becoming all that God had crafted them to be. And I remember Laura and I having a conversation with them outside their yard. They lived not far from the church. And we just, Laura just nonchalantly asked, where's your daughter? I see the other 3 kids, but where's your daughter? She's about 15. And just without even a hesitation, she said, oh, she spent the night with a boyfriend last night. No big deal. She's just like on the next topic of conversation. It wasn't anything that seemed out of line for her. New follower of Jesus, had been living her life a certain way. All she knew was this way of living. She actually, in that moment, was living with as much integrity as anyone who does anything else, good, that you would consider good, because she was living the truth of what was inside of her. So I guess she noticed our response, our reaction. She goes, "Whoa, you're shocking." Like 15 years old, she spent the night with her boyfriend. It's like no big deal. And so later, she talked to Laura about it. Laura was sharing some things with her. She went immediately and called her daughter and said, "Get home right now. This is wrong." She just in the moment shifted. In the moment, she lived with integrity when she said, when she made the decision to let her daughter go spend the night at her boyfriend's house. And she was living with the kind of integrity that pulls us, the kind of character that God begins to form in us when she realized what was now a new truth for her, a new way of being, and she immediately responded. The capacity that we're able to change and become more like the character of God is directly dependent on how quickly we respond to Him speaking to us, and how quickly we respond to the truth that's been presented to us. I was inspired. We were inspired by that. We laughed about just how easy it was for her. Oh yeah, she spent the night with her boyfriend. But she changed immediately when she knew what God desired for her. Powerful. It's an exciting journey to be with God. That's the most beautiful thing about who Jesus is. I did not come to judge the world, to condemn the world, but I came to save the world. That's His whole pursuit of us. So it's this journey of God revealing, Jesus revealing to us who we are, and inviting us forward and challenging us. But we can't take all that He has to give us. It would be so overwhelming for us. The faster we respond, the more we get, right? Our capacity increases based on the pace of our obedience. But He can't just give everything to us that He desires and envisions for us. That's why it's part of a journey. We learn it through life, through living with each other, through serving together, to being part of a community, to listening to people who care about you and want the best for you, and responding to people who don't care about you, who don't have the best in mind for you, responding in a way that helps you even grow through those things, making those people your allies. That's the beautiful thing about life. You make your enemies your friends. They don't even know that they're making you a better person. They're intending harm, but what you're doing with God in your life is you begin to turn what they intended to harm into something good and beautiful in your life. That's what it means to be on a journey with God, on this journey toward character, and making sure that when we live lives of integrity, what comes out is love and beauty, and creating better things in the world, creating the world to be a better place. That's what we get to do. That's what the journey is that we're on together with God. The more distance I create between myself and God, the less clarity I have about who I am. When I'm connected to God in relationship, I feel so inspired. I know exactly who I am, and I live it out with confidence and courage and intention. But when I start to drift, when I start to get discouraged and disappointed by life, and I start to distance myself from God, then I begin to forget who He told me I was. I forget. And I start making decisions that create the kinds of things that I don't want to create in my life. Jesus understood who He was. When He walked the earth, it's very clear as we read the Gospels, Matthew, Mark, and Luke, and John, we see the story of Jesus. And we see how clear He was about what He was on the earth to do. We see how clear He was about who He was. Jesus went away at times to spend time with God. The Scriptures say that consistently throughout the Gospels. And Jesus, early in the morning, went away to be alone, away from people. And He just connected with His Father. And I think, the Scriptures don't exactly say this, but I think that is why He was so clear and so confident about who He was, because He spent time with His Father. And He was completely connected. Not just in moments when He went away, but He had this connection with God all the time, where He was continually being reminded of who He was and what He was on the planet to do. Because I don't know if you've noticed, reading His life, there was constant resistance. There was a constant obstacle between Him and what He knew God had called Him to do. And He kept pushing through. Even His own followers questioned what He was doing. But because of His connection with God and His commitment to who God, His Father, was saying He was, He continued to walk forward. And that's what I want us to do. I want us to get close to God, to draw near to God, to ask God who we are and to listen. We listen when we're serving together. We're having conversations with each other. We listen to hear who God is saying we are. We read the Scriptures. And as we have this inner dialogue with God, we begin to listen for who He is saying we are. And we constantly move forward in aligning how we're living and who we say we are to who God says we are. So I want you to think of integrity in a different way. Maybe this is a different way for you. I want you to think about the relationship that you have with yourself. The conversation, the things you say to yourself, and the things you say about yourself. If those things are condemning and life-taking and debilitating and harmful and insulting, then I'm going to submit to you that you're living without integrity. Because living with integrity is aligning, it's a continual pursuit and aligning your perception about who you are with who God says you are. So, I don't know about you, that's a big area for me. No matter how many times God says this, or He says things sometimes through people, but sometimes He says things to me by the things He invites me to do in life. Sometimes my job is hard. It's challenging. Sometimes I want to give up. But then I remember that an invitation by God is an acknowledgement from Him about who I am. He's saying to me that I have what it takes to do what needs to be done for these students to become who they're meant to be. That I can be the mentor, the leader, the person who's standing up for these teenagers. No matter how hard it gets, He reminds me, because He created this opportunity for me, that I'm capable of doing this. This must be true about me because He's entrusting me with this responsibility. Look at it that way with every challenge you experience, with your job, with your marriage. I am completely and amazingly equipped to be Laura's husband. No matter how challenging our relationship gets at times, no matter what we're going through in life, when life hits us with things that we don't expect, no matter how hard it gets, I know because God has invited me into this calling to be married to Laura, that I have what it takes to lead us through it, whatever we're going through. See, God speaks to us by acknowledging us. He tells us who we are by acknowledging us, by acknowledging the things that are required to accomplish the life that we're living. Jesus had a very clear understanding of who He was, and He lived it out without shame. Let me share just a little bit with you about who Jesus was. Who He said He was. Okay? Jesus said to them, I am the bread of life. He who comes to me will not hunger, and he who believes in me will never thirst. In John 8:12, then Jesus spoke to them, saying, I am the light of the world. He who follows me will not walk in darkness, but will have the light of life. He says, I am the light of the world. John 10:9, I am the door. If anyone enters through me, he will be saved, and will go in and out and find pasture. I am the door. In John 10:11, I am the good shepherd. The good shepherd lays down his life for the sheep. I am the good shepherd. Jesus said to her in John 11:25, I am the resurrection and the life. He who believes in me will live even if he dies. And everyone who lives and believes in me will never die. Do you believe this? John 14:6, Jesus said to him, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father but through me. John 15:1, he says, I am the true vine, and my Father is the vine dresser. Every branch in me that does not bear fruit, he takes away. And every branch that bears fruit, he prunes it so that it may bear more fruit. Because I am the true vine. See, I want you to suspend just for a moment what you may think those passages mean. I want you to hear the clarity with which Jesus describes who he is. That's who God, that's how clear God wants us to be at who we are. That phrase, I am, is arguably the most powerful phrase you say to yourself. I am. Because whatever comes after that is an indication of how you define who you are. So I would be interested for you to do an exercise this week. I'm an English teacher, so you have homework. I've got another assignment later you're going to love. I want you to write down honestly, with just as much honesty as you can. I want you to write down based on right now in your life before now who you are. We'll start with I am. I am. And just make a list of words that describe who you are. And then after you look at that list, I mean, I'm not talking even at your lowest points, your most disappointing moments, I want you to write down how you feel about yourself in those moments. And I want you to decide if it aligns with who God says you are. It's a very revealing exercise. Jesus had clarity about who he was. And like I said before, I think it's because of how connected he was to his Father. And that's an invitation for us to be connected to God, so we never forget who we are. There are so many voices that will overwhelm us apart from God, trying to tell us who we are, what we should do, where we should go. So when we distance ourselves, it's those voices that begin to influence us and that we begin to listen to and define who we are. But a pursuit of integrity means that we're continually, day by day, choice by choice, aligning our lives and who we are and who we say we are with who God says we are. I want to take a look at a life in Exodus chapter 3, Moses' life. Because this dynamic plays out throughout the scriptures. God has this big invitation. Maybe you have an invitation right now. Maybe you have been offered a job that you feel like is too hard for you to do. Maybe you're in a relationship that you feel overwhelmed by and you just don't know if you can make it through. You're confronted by some problem in your life and you're not sure if you have what it takes to solve the problem, to make it through. Everyone, all the heroes in the Bible have experienced this. And I'm going to tell you, like these guys, just like us, our first response oftentimes to an invitation or to an opportunity or to a crisis that is overwhelming is we start to go back and the truth of who we say we are starts to come out. And that's what happened with Moses. He doesn't respond by saying, God, because you invited me to do this, I'm ready. God has to go through this process with Moses, where he has to almost convince him and remind him of who he is and why he has chosen Moses to do this thing that he's asked him to do. Exodus chapter 3, verse 7. The Lord said, I have indeed seen the misery of my people in Egypt. I have heard them crying out because of their slave drivers, and I am concerned about their suffering. So I have come down to rescue them from the hand of the Egyptians and to bring them up out of the land into a good and spacious land, a land flowing with milk and honey, the home of the Canaanites, the Hittites, Amorites, Perizzites, Hivites, and Jebusites. And now the cry of the Israelites has reached me, and I have seen the way the Egyptians are oppressing them. So now go, I am sending you to Pharaoh to bring my people, the Israelites, out of Egypt. But Moses said to God, who am I that I should go to Pharaoh and bring the Israelites out of Egypt? And God said, I will be with you. And this will be the sign to you that it is I who have sent you. When you have brought the people out of Egypt, you will worship God on this mountain. I'm going to stop there in the story from the scriptures, but that's the invitation from God. What was Moses' first response? Who am I that I should go? If God, the creator of the universe, has revealed himself to you in a bush, and he says to you, I want you to do this, and your first response is, who am I to do this? What God is saying is, you are the man for this. You are the person for this calling. I have access to everyone on the planet, but I choose you. Think about what you've been invited to do in your life. Think about the things that you shrink back from. Think about the things that you're afraid that you don't know if you can do this task that He laid before you. I want you to take a moment and consider that this invitation from God is an acknowledgement of all the greatness and power inside of you. And as uncomfortable as it is, He's inviting you to step up and to rise up and to step into this new moment, to become a new person. That's the invitation that God gives us constantly. Listen to Moses' language. Later on in the passage. First he says, who am I that I should go to Pharaoh? God said, I asked you, is there any ambiguity about who I'm talking to right now? I'm right here in front of you, I'm talking to you. And then later on he says, suppose I go to the Israelites and say to them, the God of your fathers has sent me to you. And they ask me, what is his name? What shall I tell them? He said, God says, tell them I am that I am. There's that phrasing again, I am that I am. See, we have adjectives after our I am, and fill in the blanks. God is just is. I am. Arguably the most powerful statement in our minds, in our heads. I am, what follows after I am defines who we are. Let's constantly check to see if who we are is aligned, who we say we are, is aligned with who God says we are. That is the essence of integrity. That's the pursuit we're on. Later on he says, what if they do not believe me or listen to me and say, the Lord did not appear to you? Or what if they say, pardon your servant, Lord, I have never been eloquent, neither in the past nor since you have spoken to your servant. I am slow of speech and tongue. We immediately, when we're invited to these God-sized tasks, however big or small they are, the things that challenge us to the core, the first thing we do is start to remind ourselves of why we can't do it, why we don't have what it takes, why we don't have the skills, we don't have the life experience, we don't deserve this, we don't deserve that. We constantly respond to God, His invitations, for us to move forward by saying, I can't do this because of this, because of this, because of this. And it's because God's inviting us, we know for sure that our perception of who we are is nowhere near God's perception of who we are. So this process, this dialogue that Moses is going through, is the same process that he uses with you to begin to help you develop into that person that he's created you to be. As painful and uncomfortable as it is, that process is part of the journey. And and we see what happened on the other side of that. Moses ended up taking on the challenge, was very successful. He accomplished the goal. Everything he said he couldn't do, as hard as it was, he stepped through it and he went through it and he led the people out. You have what it takes to do the things that God has called you to do in your life too. Okay, so I've asked Bobby, he's been so gracious even though I took his shoes all those years ago, to have some index cards. So here's where your English assignment comes in, all right? I want us to do just one little quick thing today, because I want you to start thinking this way about integrity. Again, integrity is, the goal of integrity, what we're shooting for, is to get as closely connected to God as we can, so that the way we view ourselves and who we are is aligned with who God says we are. And the phrase that I use to describe that is God-crafted identity. See, God-crafted identity is who God has created us to be. And we're going to go through a process, and after we finish this short little process, you're going to know what your God-crafted identity is, or you're going to begin understanding or learning about who you are, who God says you are. See, what I call what Moses did when he first got invited to lead the people out of Israel, when he first responded by saying, I can't, who am I can't speak, all these things, he was slipping into his self-crafted identity. See, the self-crafted identity is how we have defined ourselves based on our failures, our disappointments, based on the things that we believe that other people have told us about who we are. We've developed this identity based on that. All of us have gone through it. We were young, has anyone been around a 3-year-old recently? Man, 3-year-olds are just all about life. I mean, they are ready to play. They don't have time for naps. They just want to play. They're full of life. I remember when Jacob was 3. Can you embarrass? He's right there. Sorry, Jacob. I know you hate him today. When he was 3, he was ready to go all the time. We were at Disneyland. He was having the time of his life. We would go to the DMV. He was swinging from the thing. He was having the time of his life at the DMV. It didn't matter where we were. He was going to play. He was going to have fun. That's how 3-year-olds live. But slowly but surely, we get to this place where we become more aware of the world around us. So around the time of 6 or 7, we begin to hear what people are saying about us. We begin to have a few failures or uncomfortable moments in our life. And, as Jacob's father, my role in his life is to coach him through those things. He came home one day and said, no one likes you, we're not even friends. That is absolutely not true. Jacob is the most friendly, connected person in the world. This is like, kindergarten, first grade. And I say to him, Jacob, you have so many friends. There's Brandon, Joshua, listen, Sam, all the friends he has. So I get to help him through that, okay? But a lot of things that he's experienced in his life, he has not shared with me. We all have this private life that we don't share with other people. So he's experiencing life and just making assumptions about what they mean. And so we start to develop this identity based on what we're experiencing from other people in our lives. And that's what makes up our self-crafted identity. So the battle is to always respond to God and to life. Are we going to respond in our self-crafted identity, where we refuse to believe we're capable of doing this, or are we going to respond with our God-crafted identity? Okay, so what I want you to do is I want you to just bring to mind, don't write this down, but I want you to bring to mind the proudest moments of your life. The times in your life where you shined, where you came through. It was a project at work, it was a relationship, it was a crisis you stepped up in, it was something you accomplished, it was just something you're proud of, your greatest moments. I want you to think of all of them that you can bring to mind. If you're like me, I mean, sometimes you're driving down the street and those things come to mind, like back in high school, remember that? Yeah. I hit a ground rule double off of Brian Bohannon. My eyes were closed, no one needs to know that. You know? He was a perfect, he ended up being a major league pitcher. I told that story for years. I dream about it in my mind in the car. What are those moments for you? What are those moments that just inspire yourself? You know? Like, I remember when I was this way. I remember when I did this. I want you to think about those moments in your life. Okay? And I want you to write down 5 or 6 words that describe who you were in those moments. You were courageous, you were fierce, you were loving, you were kind, you were servant-hearted. I want you to just think of any adjectives you can think of to describe who you were. You were consistent, you were faithful, you were wise, you were just the moments you were most proud of. What words describe you in those moments? Write those down. Take a couple minutes. No talking. Okay. Now what I want you to do is I want you to circle the 3 words out of that list that resonate with you the most. Like these 3 words are the top 3 words that resonate with me, that make me think, yeah, this is true. When I'm at my best, this word describes me. Out of the 5 or 6 words you wrote down, circle 3. Circle 3 of those words. And now I want you to put it in a statement. All right? We're going to use that powerful phrase I mentioned earlier, I am. I want you to write down, I am a, put those 3 words there after I am a. I'm a powerful, courageous, authentic, and then put man or woman, or leader if you want, or girl or boy, whatever applies. I am a, and then put those 3 words there. And then put either man or leader or woman. Whatever resonates, whatever you feel most connected to, whatever word describes you best. Okay, now, I'm going to give you a couple minutes to muster up the courage to share with everyone what you wrote. Not everybody, just volunteers, all right? So if you don't want to do it, don't even think about it again. You don't have to. But I want a couple of courageous people to share in just a second. I want to unwrap a little bit about what we just did, okay? You thought back on moments that were true, that happened in your life. The words that you wrote down about yourself were not contrived. They weren't words that you wish were true of you. They weren't things that you wished you could add to your life. Those things came out of experiences that you showed up in a big way. Those words describe who you are. And so in a very real way, God has been showing you who you are your whole life. The proof is those moments, those proud moments, those great moments where you stepped up and you shined. Okay? That's what we just did here. We didn't make words up that we wish were true. We looked back at our lives and we described ourselves this way based on how we showed up in those moments. All right, now here we go. I just want 3 or 4 people, brave people, this is share what you just wrote. Just raise your hand if you're willing. I don't know if we do this at Mosaic, but you're awesome. Thank you.
I am a smart, creative, welcoming woman.
Awesome. Man, if the world had that type of person, has that type of person, we all live from that description alone, what a beautiful world that would be. That's awesome. I love that. Go ahead.
I'm a responsive, loving, fearless woman.
Responsive, loving, fearless woman. You've seen that in your life. That's true of who you are. That is God showing you who you are.
I am a gracious, accountable, God-fearing man.
Awesome. Gracious, accountable, God-fearing. Love it. Anybody else like to share? One more. Okay.
Proud, generous, and loving.
2 more. I'm a proud, generous, and loving man.
Very much in that order.
Love that. Love that. Right here.
I'm a strong, passionate, courageous woman.
Strong, passionate, courageous woman. Imagine how the world would look if we all believed that all the time. And we all lived that way all the time. And we continually listen to God as He reminds us that this is who we are. That you've been placed on the planet to live this way, because I know at the time you were placed on the planet, this is what the world needs. It needs someone like you. What a powerful, powerful way to live. Aligning who we say we are with who God says we are. And integrity is a word that is, we just can't help but have integrity. We are going to live out what is going on inside. The essence of integrity is entering this journey of becoming who God has crafted us to be, and listening to who God says that we are, and continually aligning ourselves with that. No matter how big the mistake is that we made, we regroup, and as quickly as we can, we get back on track with who God says we are. Spend time with God, stay connected with God, so He can continually remind you of that and increase that courage and that willingness and that ability to live that out. And now that you have that statement, I want you to take it home. I want you to, this is the homework assignment. I'm going to take the homework assignment in a second. Now I'll tell you now. I want you to go home, I want you to use a thesaurus, and I want you to look up each of the 3 words you chose. All right? You can turn this in next week. You understand? Look up the 3 words that you chose. Look at other words in the thesaurus that give you a deeper meaning of what those words mean. And then I want you to look in the scriptures for those words. Now words like, I don't know, the actual word passionate might not be in the scriptures, but I want you to look for words, or look for places in the scripture where someone is living passionately. And I want you to find those passages to give you a little more of an understanding of what God says about your God-crafted identity, about what that means. Okay? That's the homework. It's not a one-time decision to reject falsehood. You know, one of the most damaging things that I've seen in families is our parents who live kind of this false life. There's a dichotomous life, what's going on inside the home and what people perceive outside the home. It destroys children. It destroys their perspective about who they are. And it stalls this journey for kids coming to a place where they know where they understand who God says that they are. Okay? Not just in our homes, but everywhere. Falsehood stunts us. And it starts to slowly destroy us from the inside out. So integrity is not just about, it's not at all about pursuing perfection, but rejecting falsehood. So don't pretend not to know. Don't pretend not to know these things that are happening that keep leading to the same places you don't want to be. Confront it. Admit it, take responsibility for it, get people around you, and grow through it. It's not a one-time commitment to be this person that you just wrote on your card. It's a daily choice. The scriptures say, 1 John 3, verse 19, "This then is how we know that we belong to the truth, and how we set our hearts at rest in His presence whenever our hearts condemn us. For God is greater than our hearts, and He knows everything." Our confidence comes from God. Our confidence comes from God, not even our own selves, because we can't even be trustworthy with how we treat ourselves. But we do have to be trustworthy with how we respond to what God is saying to us. Let's all get there. Let's all live out these amazing descriptions of who we are. If we had time to go through and read everyone's God-crafted identity, it would be amazing if we all at once committed today to live that way, to be that way for each other, to be that way for the world. When Jesus came into the world, He came to do what religion will never do. He came to give us a new heart. For some of you, you've lived your life maybe a long time without God. And if you're now following Jesus, you've noticed a shift where at the core of your heart you wanted to become better. You wanted to do things differently. You felt bad about things that you never felt bad about before. And it may seem like you're less happy than you were before you were a follower. But what it is those growing pains. It's this beautiful aspiration to become the man or woman you were created to be. And it's the beautiful journey getting there with God. Let's all, no matter what, we're going to live with integrity. We can't not live with integrity. We have to. But what if what was inside of us were the things that were needed for the world to become a more loving and beautiful place? For more people to know who God is and find Christ. Let's live that way together with integrity. Let's pray. Jesus, thank you so much this morning. So grateful to be here. So grateful for this community and what you're using them to do in the city and beyond the city. I pray your blessings on every person here, on Octavio's leadership, and the elders, and the servant-hearted people who are here every morning, early on Sundays, and are serving others throughout the week. That is the essence of what the church, your church is in the world. That when we scatter after Sunday, and we're everywhere else in the city that you've planted, that you've called us to, that we live out the core values that we're learning about here and growing through together. And we become a reference point for hope wherever we are. We become a light to those that are living in darkness. We love you, we thank you, we pray these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
So you heard your homework, and for some of you, I think you probably had a kind of a breakthrough moment that you haven't had in quite a while. And so to continue the breakthrough and the aha moments, you found on your chair an action card, correct? Why don't you guys take that out? And this will go in alignment with the exercise that we just had Ricky take us through. So if you look at the action steps here in the back, take time this week and describe in writing the person you long to become. Step number 2 during this week, make a list of all the aspects of your life that best reflects your ideals. Number 3, make a list of everything in your life that is out of alignment with your best self. That might be the most, well, that will be the most painful, but that will be the most helpful if you're doing this honestly and working through this.